Welcome back. Hope you had a wonderful time checking in with each other. Welcome to Sunday Morning Zen, a program of Zen Life and Meditation Center. We're happy you could join us this morning. I'd like to just take a moment to recognize and thank our newest Bodhisattva member, Alexander Sandy McNabb. Thank you very much for your support of the center. It makes such a big difference, as well as to the rest of you who have taken the plunge and worked with ZLMC in this way. It really makes a difference, makes it possible for us to do programs like Sunday Morning Zen and Commit to Sit, as well as programs like the one we're going to talk about this morning, Ango. And so that's what we're gathered here to discuss. And I'll turn it over to our abbot, Roshi Robert Lopez.
Can you all hear me online? Okay. So we did it. Ango translates roughly as training period or practice period. And Ango is a very old practice in the Zen tradition. It was traditionally done in Asia during the monsoon season, because most of the monasteries, there was a lot of work that was done to support the monasteries. They probably would be farming or going out and begging. Well, they couldn't do anything in the monsoon season, so they developed this tradition of having these 3-month training periods, because there was nothing much else they could do, and they would sit a lot of meditation during a training period. And we have done these Angos now from the very beginning. When Sensei and I started the Zen Center of Hawaii, we did Angos in Hawaii, and we have done Angos here in Oak Park, 3 or 4 of them, but we didn't do them for a long stretch. So the first one we did after not having done them for a while was last year, when Shikan was our head trainee. So when we do a training period, there is one person that is identified as the person that is the practice leader or the head trainee, and they're called the Shuso. And so last year, Shikan was the Shuso, and we're very happy that this year Myogetsu has generously volunteered to I actually asked her, and she agreed. Had to think about it a little bit, because it's a big commitment, and it involves a lot more steady practice. And so Myogetsu will be our Shuso, which means head trainee or practice leader. So I'm going to let both Myogetsu and Shikan talk about this, but I thought I would just introduce this. And I've done Angos at the Zen Center of Los Angeles. The first Ango I did was when Bernie Glassman was Shuso, and I was his attendant at Zen Center Los Angeles. I think it was in 1972. We were both really young. And I was assigned, because Maizumi Roshi was introducing Ango to all of us, and we didn't know anything. And so we were doing all these services, and someone had to write all this stuff down. So I did. I had a big notebook I carried around with me. I wrote down what the different positions did and stuff. And one of the funny stories I have about that is that at the Zen Center Los Angeles, we had, and it's still this way, the Zendo was created in a house, in the living room, and the dining room became kind of like the Buddha hall with a big altar. And so there was a big pillar that supported the living room between the living room and the dining room, as you could imagine in an ordinary house, and there was a second floor on top. And so in order for us to do the service like we did this morning, what's called the Jishario are the attendants to the officiant, like the person with the incense, the Jisha, and the person carrying the incense box, the Hako, and the person ringing the Incan bell. And that's one unit that sort of follows the officiant around. And when they came into the Zendo in the Buddha hall, they had to walk around that pillar to get to the altar. And so I wrote down very, very precisely all these directions about how they walk around that pillar to get to the altar. And then many years later, when I did Ango, and I was a Shuso at the Zen Mountain Center. This is probably this is 20 years later, because I wasn't a real good Zen student. I kind of played hooky for about 10 years, 15 years, doing other things. But I came back, and so I was a Shuso, and the first time it's a different place. It's up in outside of Idlewild, this beautiful monastery. The Zen Center bought the land and built these different buildings. There was a Zendo and one separate Buddha hall. So we would sit in the Zendo, and then we would walk down file with bells and things and go do the service every morning in the Buddha hall. And the first time we went in to do the service, I hadn't been there, I noticed that the Jacharya was going around doing this pattern, going up to the altar, doing this imaginary, they were doing this funny pattern as if there was a pillar in the middle of the room, but it wasn't there, but they were following my instructions that I'd written down very precisely about how to do this. And that's what happens with tradition and ritual. It starts getting, it gets literalized, and then it becomes a sacred cow, and then everyone's doing it, but they don't know why. And, oh no, this is the way it's supposed to be done. So there is that about ritual. But I must say that, and I don't necessarily look forward to Angos because they're a lot more work, but I always appreciate them when I'm in it, because it's sort of, it helps me make a commitment to deepen my own practice, and then I get support from everyone else that makes the same kind of commitment. And boy, we need, it seems to me now more than ever, we need this kind of steady, just steady practice together, and where we tighten everything up. One of the interesting things about the Japanese tradition is in Ango, we have different positions, like the Shuso, and there's the Doan. There are service positions, and then there are positions in the Ango itself that people perform. And I've forgotten some of the Japanese names, so I can't even say them all anymore. But in Japan, they don't call people by their name during an Ango training. They call them by their position. Well, you'd be like Shuso. Myogetsu, if I was talking to Myogetsu, I'd say Shuso, or Doan, or Ino, which is very interesting because they kind of take the individuality out of the practice, and you become identified with what you're doing, what your role is, and you're responsible for that role. And when everyone takes responsibility for their particular position, then everything functions really well, really well. And that's what I mean by tightening up the practice. But in order for that to happen, we all have to make a mutual agreement and commitment that we're going to show up for each other. We're going to show up for each other, or else this doesn't work. And I think right now, this is what we need. This is kind of the medicine we need, is to show up for each other and find a way to really get what we mean by taking refuge in the three treasures, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So I always remember, I think it was Suzuki Roshi said that, you know, the Buddha and the Dharma are pretty well taken care of, but the Sangha is like trying to plant a tree on a rock, you know. Hard. It's hard. So we're going to do this Ango. It's going to start, all the details are on the website now, you can see them. If you did it last year, you can share stories about what it was like for you. My experience of Angos is that they're sometimes really hard. There are points in the Ango where almost always there are personal difficulties between people. It just happens. It's sort of like halfway through. It's like we're rubbing elbows, and it just becomes a shitstorm at some point, and things have to be dealt with because We're not a country club. We're not a golf country club. We're a Sangha, and we're rubbing elbows when we practice like this, and we're gonna have disagreements and get hurt or whatever happens. And that's a wonderful place where we can practice if we show up and stay. The other thing that happens in Ango that has been my experience is an awful lot of laughter, an awful lot of good-heartedness and humor and kind of camaraderie, because we're doing it together. And I think we need this. We need this right now. Our center needs it. We need it as a community. And so I'm very happy that we're doing the Ango. I'm very happy that Myogetsu is going to be the Shuso. And I'm going to, well, first I think I'll just open it up for a few questions, and then I'm going to hand it over to Shikan, who was the Shuso last year, and let him talk a little bit about what it was like for him, and then I'm going to ask Myogetsu to talk. Are there anyone have any questions about what I've said so far? Chris?
Yeah, will Shikan or Myogetsu, will you talk a little bit about what Ango is? Okay, because what you're sharing sort of suggests that there are at least times where people come together where they can either rub elbows or laugh. So I'm not quite sure.
You want the specifics?
I'm not quite sure when that would occur. So maybe that will happen in the
No, I can answer that right now pretty
Okay.
clearly. The Ango begins with the fall session that starts in early September, which is coming up in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, it begins August 28th.
August 28th is when it starts, Sunday night. And we ask, if you are making a commitment to be in the Ango, that you make your best effort to come to that session full-time if you can, or part-time. And then the Ango goes through from that retreat to the winter retreat that starts in early December. And then we ask, if you're attending the Ango, that you make commitment to come to the December retreat full-time. It's kind of the end of everything. So we begin the Ango with an opening ceremony on the Sunday morning Zen of that Sunday that the session starts. We did that last year. Some of you may have seen it. And then when the Ango ends, we have what's called a Shuso Hosen ceremony, where the Shuso gives a short talk to everyone, and then people come up and do Dharma combat. It's very scary for the Shuso. That's why it's a rite of passage into the Shuso becoming a senior student, so to speak, because that's part of the tradition, is when someone goes through being a Shuso, they get elevated to a slightly higher rank of being a senior student, so to speak. And then there are various commitments you can make in the Ango. And what happens is, say, I want to participate in this, and then you look at the sheet, and it says what the schedule is. There's regular sitting in the weekday, mornings and evenings. You can sign up to sit all the mornings or all the evenings. And then basically you can look at the paper on the sheet or the information on the website and see what the schedule is. And then you say, yes, I would like to participate, but maybe you're not sure what you can commit to. And then you would sit down and meet with Myogetsu, who would go over this with you specifically about what it is that you want to commit to, and ask you questions about, what's important to you in your life. Maybe there's some kind of change you want to move towards during those 3 months. There's some intention you want to set. And so you would sort of make a commitment to a specific diet of practice at the Zen Center in terms of how you show up. And we do service every Sunday during Ango. And that might seem like that's really awful. It's like service every Sunday. There are people that love service and there are people that hate it. I've never been in a Sangha where there hasn't been this kind of division. The people that just wait till the service is over and then they come. But it's actually a wonderful way to I can't put it completely into words, but when you do a service together, something, you are aligning yourself with something larger than yourself and with each other. And you're also kind of reminding yourself of the wisdom that I think we all love, but often forget about. And that wisdom and compassion is filled in the sutras that we chant. So in the Ango, we do service every Sunday. And if you're in the Ango, you can, we would invite you to make a commitment to being in one of those service positions. And it doesn't mean that you might say, I'd like to be the Jisha attendant to the officiant for the service, and I would like to be in that position. And then maybe you have to do something during the Ango where you go away, and then it would get delegated to somebody else while you're gone. Does that answer your question, Chris? Yeah. Any other questions from me? Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Shikan. Let Shikan talk about it.
So first and foremost, congratulations, Myogetsu, on your selection as Shuso. It's a wonderful honor. It's also a pretty big responsibility because she's going to carry kind of the practice momentum for the next several months here at the center, and she's going to be driving it as the practice leader. And one thing that I noticed during Ango last year is that there's going to be a tendency to kind of look at all the commitments that are involved and to want to get overwhelmed and say, this will like throw my entire daily schedule out of whack. And what I would say to that is, yeah, that's kind of what it's going to do. That can be a wonderful thing because it can give us a chance to kind of reorder that kind of conditioned approach to our lives and kind of open up to a new way of practice and a new way of seeing things, which is what our practice is all about. And so, as you go through the commitment form, I know Myogetsu is going to do everything she possibly can to accommodate everybody in terms of participation. But I would encourage you to stretch as much as you can and make as many commitments as you can that you think you can follow through in, because we've done it 2 years in a row, but there's no guarantee that we'll be doing an Ango every year moving forward. So practice times like this are just a very special time that you have to really to kind of set your affairs in order, so to speak, and deepen your practice. In terms of logistics, Myogetsu, I don't know how deep you want to go into that. So what I'll do is I'm here to answer questions about dates and times and sign up methodology and everything else, but I'll let you speak to that, and then I'll be here to fill in any blanks if there are questions going forward about that.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Roshi and Shikan. I'm very grateful and humbled for this opportunity, and very grateful that Roshi asked not once, but twice, because as you know, it is a huge commitment. And I started thinking the first time I said no, partly because my workload has tremendously increased and I have a lot more commitments on that end. I also have some medical issues that can be erratic and require some attention. So the first time, as much as I value this practice and value our capacity to come together as a Sangha and to deepen our spiritual practice, both individually and collectively, I was feeling a bit hesitant related to my own obstacles. And it was a curious experience, because the first time when I said to Roshi, I don't think I can give up work and the medical sort of complexity that I have to face. So after I said no the first time, I really sort of dug into what these obstacles are for me. And I started to realize that none of us will get perfect conditions for spiritual practice, right? There is not a perfect time, moment, place for spiritual practice. There just isn't. And I had to realize that myself, that, as much as I might fantasize, and I have done retreats, long retreats in monasteries, and conditions always arise to bother your mind. It doesn't matter where you are. So I started really getting in touch with, well, what is my resistance and what do I think is going on here? And I was kind of reminded a little bit of our evening gatha during sesshin, which is sort of the encouragement that we not squander our life. And I thought, well, this is true, isn't it? Like, we know we're going to die. We don't know when. What are we going to do from now until that event, if not deepen our spiritual practice? So the second time that Roshi asked, I said yes. And recognizing that I still have my work commitments, I still have my medical issues. I'm a type 1 diabetic now, and that requires a lot of maintenance and care. But I feel like, if not now, when? When will be the right time? When will be the perfect time? When will we have all the necessary conditions and resources and support and effort, if not right now? So I thought, I'm just going to take the plunge. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if at some point I pass out in the middle of the zendo. I think Sangha's there. So it's just plunging forward and doing what I can to make some arrangements with work, especially during sesshin, because I will commit to full-time sesshin and get some coverage for work and home responsibilities. But I was very much touched by Roshi's request and very deeply humbled. And certainly the help that Shikan has given me in thinking about some flexibility and some ways that I can commit to a practice without feeling like it's got to be all or none. And so I want to say that to all of you as well, that there is flexibility and there is a way to make this practice yours, while at the same time kind of stretching ourselves to be of service, to get to know one another as spiritual practitioners. And I was sort of reminded by something that a teacher had said to me many years ago about, well, there's only 2 rules to the spiritual path. And I'm like, only 2? Sign me up. And she said, begin, continue. Right? Begin and continue. Those are the 2 rules. So as I was contemplating that, it's so important to be able to serve in this capacity, and for all of us to be perfectly imperfect. I'm learning. I've got a lot to learn, and I learn from all of you. I learn from Roshi and Shikan, from everyone, not just at the center, but people that I work with, people whose paths I cross. And now is the time, right? Now the conditions have arisen for all of us to make a choice to participate in a deeper spiritual practice. And we know the transformative power of spiritual practice. Each one of us, I would hazard a guess, that each one of us in our own way and in our own world know what it's like to have a moment of deepening, of heart opening in our spiritual path. And so to have a dedicated time period, and I'm very grateful to Roshi and Sensei to have offered this to our Sangha, and to continually work with all of us to tighten things up and to realize the importance of the 3 treasures, that it's a very meaningful practice. So one of the other things that we do during Ango is to actually have a study group, and I'll be leading that, and we'll do it every other week, starting Tuesday, September 13th, 7 o'clock, 7 to 8:30. I'm going to be coming in person and encourage people to do that, but there will be opportunity to also do that online. And we're going to primarily be studying two texts. One is Training in Compassion, Zen Teachings on Lojong by Norman Fischer. And the other one will be Chogyam Trungpa's book, Training the Mind, also the Practice on Lojong. And so why did I pick these texts? As you know, Lojong training it's about it's a Tibetan practice. And it's a Vajrayana, Mahayana practice, but it's about the root text of training the mind. There are 7 primary points to training the mind. And embedded in those 7 points are 59 Norman Fischer uses the word pithy, and I would agree with that. 59 pithy slogans that are really all about meeting life's challenges. So Lojong training is a training to help us look at the adversities, look at the challenges, look at all the complexities of our lives, and find a way to work with those challenges in the moment by recognizing the power of these 59 slogans or Lojong. And we combine it with meditation. So my hope is it'll be a very practical, experiential way to work with Lojong practices as we're studying this together. I love that Norman Fischer put a Zen take on a non-Zen text, because the practice of Lojong is a Tibetan practice. But Norman Fischer brought in what I think is the cornerstone of Zen practice, clarity and simplicity to Zen training. The outcome, whether it's Tibetan, whether it's Zen, whatever Buddhist path it is, the outcome and hopefully the effect will be a deeper dive into the ways that we feel compassion, the ways that we cultivate resilience for others, for ourselves, and deepen our heart training, open our hearts in ways that will hopefully bring more peace to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to our Zen community. So we'll be studying these 2 texts, and I think you'll find them just amazing. The 59 slogans stick with you so well that it doesn't take a lot of memorization. It doesn't take a lot of intellectual understanding, and it's very practical. You know, you'll have a situation in your life. I've studied and practiced this for a long time, and all of a sudden, as you're feeling like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? One of the slogans can jump out at you, which is very calming and very supportive and very beneficial, because we experience a shift in the way that we normally think about how do we deal with that complexity. So one of the things that I love in Lojong training for both of the texts is that there's kind of a little warning on the back of Chogyam Trungpa's book that says, you know, caution, using these books could be hazardous to your ego. And don't we want to knock our ego around a little bit? I felt very stuck in mine when Roshi first approached me. And I thought, well, how do I give up my, how do I let go of some of my work commitments? Because it's important work and I'm fulfilling an important role. And I thought, in whose mind? I mean, yes, there's some importance about it, but let's not overinflate it, Myogetsu, and let's really sort of see farther and deeper. And so I appreciate this opportunity. And I'm looking very much forward to meeting with any of you and all of you that are interested. It'll be a delight to spend such a long time together in spiritual practice. It might not always be a delight. I appreciated Roshi's words of rubbing elbows. I've experienced that directly in other situations where you feel like you want to go running and screaming from the Zendo or from a practice, and sometimes you do inwardly. But I think that's the power of Sangha. We have a chance to breathe into it and have a chance to understand it and have a chance to dislodge the hold that those deluded minds have on our spiritual practice. because they're very strong. And unless we're taking a look at it, that's what dominates, doesn't it? So very much looking forward to this practice period. Some intense practice, some intense study together. I'm especially looking forward to the laughter, because I think it's one of the things we've all experienced in the Zendo and our respective circles. There's nothing warmer than laughing with our Sangha friends and our teachers, and just recognizing the frailties of our human condition and the resilience of our human condition. And so my promise to you is that I will be working as deeply and as sincerely as I can. This is also an opportunity for me to deepen my practice, which I'm always happy to do, and recognize that the conditions will always be imperfect, conditions will always be less than, but if not now, when? So please join me, please join our center, and whatever you need. Shikan is a tremendous resource. I must admit, I'm still sort of fumbling and bumbling my way through what this means, but Shikan and Roshi and Sensei are tremendous resources. So let's have some fun, and let's deepen our spiritual practice. Thank you.
So there's the next steps for folks are to first off, cultivate a real yearning to practice in this way, and then head on over to zlmc.org, and you'll notice there's now a banner on the page. It says deepen your practice, and if you click on that, it'll lead you to the page for the 2022 Ango. And on that page, you'll get a list of all the dates. So you'll get a list of the key ceremonies that are happening, the dates for the study, when the fact that we're having weekly services, when the opening ceremony is, things like that. But you'll also get a link to a form to fill out, and that form is kind of like the opening volley on setting your commitments for the Ango practice period. And so it's not particularly long; it's only about 10 questions. But it'll kind of detail some of the things that you can participate in, and give you an opportunity to say, hey, I can do it, but I'm going to need these accommodations to make it work. And we're willing to work with you, or Shuso is willing to work with you to make that happen. Once you fill out that form, I'm going to be working closely with Benji. So Myogetsu has chosen a Benji for this year's Ango, and that is Elizabeth Kaido Carabello. And so believe it or not, Shuso gets a lot of hazing, but Benji probably gets an equal amount on the administrative end as well. I'm looking forward to initiating some of that with her. And we'll then take a look through all those inbound requests to join, and Kaido will begin queuing up conversations between you and Shuso. So she knows, or she will be made aware of Shuso's availability and everybody who wants to participate, and she'll be kind of putting that together to set up appointments for you to meet with Shuso. During those intakes, for lack of a better term, Shuso will look over your commitments, and you'll both come to an understanding of how you're going to practice, and then you're going to practice sincerely in that way through Ango, and Shuso is going to work with you to make sure that you live up to and honor those commitments. Of course, the burden is on the participant, but Shuso is there to help. And when things change, because I promise things will, just stay in touch with Shuso, and Shuso will help renegotiate those commitments in a way that makes sense to continue deepening your practice. And then the next thing we're asking is, after you've done that, you just still your heart for a moment, and that you make a donation to the center to participate. We're not telling you we give you a recommendation, but we're not telling you what you have to do. Just support it in any way that's within your means, and recognize that during this time, I'm sure many of you know, if you've had meetings with me, there's a huge administrative load as it already stands here at ZLMC to keep these plates spinning. And when we take on Ango, it's kind of a very audacious undertaking, because we're already kind of stretched very thin. And so what we do is we basically kind of set aside some of the more, I don't know how to put it, but the more administrative or income generating portions of the work that we do so that we can focus on Ango. And so your support will make that possible and make it able for all of us to kind of engage in this practice during the period.
So I want to say one thing, just hearing Shuso talk now, I want to come to this Ango. Can I come? No, really, that was so well put, Myogetsu. And if Myogetsu can be the Shuso, then I think almost any of us could be a participant. And I just want to stress that a commitment doesn't mean being inflexible or rigid. It means you make a commitment within the conditions of your life, and everyone has different responsibilities, family, work, whatever, but we'll work with you around that. And the other word I want to stress is plunge, that Shuso said during her wonderful talk there. A plunge, Bernie used to talk a lot about plunges in the Zen Peacemaker order. And the first time you ever do a full-time sesshin, that's a plunge. You come into a situation and you don't know what's going to happen. The first time you do an Ango, that's a plunge. You've made a commitment and kind of jumped off a cliff into something. You don't know what's coming. And it's intense. And you have to raise your level of practice to meet that intensity. And you feel overwhelmed some of the time. You feel not capable of doing things that are being asked of you, or you feel inadequate. And that kind of practice actually, you're not in your comfort zone. And I think that's kind of what a plunge is about, is being willing to not be in your comfort zone and realize that those are the places, that's when we learn the most, when we're not in our comfort zone. And we have to kind of reach and stretch ourselves, and then our hearts break open. Our hearts are broken by the pain and the suffering of people we know and the world. And a plunge does that to you. And I just got done with a plunge at the Native American retreat. It just broke me open. It wasn't pleasant for me. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. And that's the way I feel about Ango. And I hope you all take advantage of this. You can do it online from a distance too. It can be hybrid. We encourage you, if you live in the area, to come and be in person as much as possible, because this is how we find our heart again as a Sangha. But if you're coming from a distance and you want to participate, you can certainly do that as well. So it's not rigid. You can be, if I had been rigid with Myogetsu, she might said of no the second time too. But she said, thankfully, you said yes. And so here we are. So people might have questions of Myogetsu or Shikan or anybody.
Yes, hi, Myogetsu. I have a question about how do we, I don't know how to say it, how would we do this Ango in the presence of our concern about COVID? How much of it is going to be in person? How, do we protect ourselves? Anything like that might help. Thanks.
Earl, that's that question directly hits home for me as well, because as you know, I'm very, very concerned and cautious, and have been ultra careful about health concerns and taking precautions. I'm going to increase my own in-person participation, and I think each of us has our own comfort level in terms of wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing. I want to encourage people to be respectful in terms of knowing their own health conditions. And if they're feeling ill, to be mindful of that and care for self and others by, remaining at home or coming in. But certainly, as Roshi said, opportunities for hybrid study, hybrid work, hybrid, service is there. So based on each of our levels of comfort, please do what's most comfortable for you. If you can come in, obviously there's a richness in being together, but certainly take it to heart to what you can and can't do.
So Earl, it's a really good question. And we just, from day to day, things are going to change.
Yeah.
Maybe next month we have a pandemic again and we all are doing things online. We don't know. And so I think the most important thing here is we're inviting you to make a commitment, but no one needs to be heroic or a martyr about this.
Right.
Everyone needs to take responsibility for taking care of themselves. And people have different health conditions. Myogetsu is online this morning. She was going to be here, but she got it. Didn't you get exposed to COVID?
I was exposed to COVID Friday night and woke up with some mild symptoms this morning. So decided to stay here.
She's here online, but look at how she's participating, given that obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can overcome these obstacles. We can find ways to do it by being creative and supporting each other. And if you come to the Zen Center and you don't feel safe, wear a mask by all means. And we're basically following CDC guidelines, aren't we, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
We're still following. We've been doing that all along. And if the conditions should change and there's a variant that's really bad and it's in our community, we will deal with that with as much responsibility as we can for the safety of everyone in the world.
Does that answer your question, Earl? Anyone else? Liz?
I just wanted to tell everybody, last year when I did Ango, I spent a lot of time at the center. And I have to say, and I think Ango itself, if you want to get close to your Sangha members, do Ango. I'm serious. If you want to really cultivate that friendship, that relationship, I thought we all had a lot of fun with each other. I really do. It was wonderful to come in and we were all a team and we were all working together and we were having a lot of laughs throughout the process. And I have to say, the relationships that I received from that, I'm close to quite a few people there. That, had I not done Ango, that may not have been possible for me. And that goes for the whole hybrid situation. I do have a question though, for those that are concerned about COVID and coming into the Zen Center. Is there going to be an opportunity of support, like to have them online, like in the morning or in the evening sits? So I know we have our 6 p.m. sits. So will we be offering that online to support those who are not coming in? Just so they can have that one-on-one feeling,
So
or, just joining to be with everybody.
Yeah, I think these are wonderful questions. And I think that part of the process of people signing up and us then conducting those intake interviews is going to elucidate a lot of opportunities for us to practice and find out where we need to place the hybrid situation on the continuum. And then Benji and Shuso will work together. And I'm happy, and I know the Abbott's happy to make any support or adjustments we need to do here to make bring those things into reality for our practice. So I think some of those questions about where we'll fall on the hybrid situation is going to be dictated by who signs up to participate and what their level of participation is.
Mm.
So sign up. I think people are busy filling out the form.
Well, if there's no more questions, and maybe we could close early. Anyone have a joke they want to tell? Or a good story? Something like a good story.
There's a tradition that we have that Shuso cleans the toilets during.
Oh,
So we'll have to.
yes,
We'll have to make
yeah,
sure.
I forgot all about that.
We'll have
I didn't tell Myogetsu about that.
Yeah, we don't. You save the good parts. You save the parts that would really induce them to want to do it till later. That's a benefit. That's not a. I was going to say we'll have to have a wall of Shusos doing toilets. There's a good one in back of me doing it last year, so you'll have to one up that one.
I have a
Right.
question.
Tradition in our lineage, the higher you get in terms of ranking in the hierarchy, the lower you go in terms of cleaning.
I have a question about how you clean a toilet on Zoom.
Or we'll erect a set at your house.
That's a really good
We'll erect a
question,
set at your house. You can point it in that, and we'll all be there virtually to watch. What's
Maybe we
going
could
on.
create a new Tonglen slogan about that somehow. Clean the virtual toilet.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I think they've asked their questions.
I think we're finished and complete. Thank you, Shuso. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, Shuso.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And look forward to Ango.
Congratulations, Benji, as well.
Yeah.
Let the hazing begin. I mean, we're glad to have you aboard. See you soon.
Well
Bye,
done,
everybody.
Jen.